Hey, good morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. Today we're talking about M4 collapsible or telescoping buttstocks. And we're just talking about the M4 style, nothing else. We're going to be kind of focused in on QDs, some options as far as putting quick detachables on here for your sling. And but before we get to that, I thought, well, for those of you that may not be familiar or you may not even know that there are two dimensions on the market for buffer tubes that these things slide on. And there's what's called a commercial spec, and that comes in at 1.17. And then there's the mil spec, 1.15. So this happens to be a mil spec, and you measure across here, it comes in at 1.15. So that's the first thing you got to know. Is there can be a difference in buffer tube dimension. So then there's going to be a difference in your buttstock dimension. Now the one on the left is mil spec, and the one I have here on the right is commercial spec as far as the buffer tube dimensions. And there's some other things about this this Wyndham weaponry takeoff that we'll talk about real quick also. So a quick giveaway, even though your commercial buttstock may have a mil spec dimension in here for a mil spec tube, there's kind of a quick giveaway to let you know that it's not a true mil spec. And that's this area in here. You can see this curved area on a true mil spec. That's how it looks. One of the things about the more commercialized M4 spec is this area here. This is Wyndham weaponry, and it's not quite as bad as my Palmetto State armories. But you can see that the sling doesn't get captured. It sits in this open slot. So if this screw gets loose or things start to wear out or you put a lot of force on this sling, because of the way this is designed, there's nothing to capture it. And this thing can swing like all the way to the side and further. And so that's another downside to this more commercialized version of the M4. Whereas if you look at the mil spec, it sits in this recessed slot, and it does have some reinforcement on the side to capture the sling so that it can't move very much. And you can still see there's room in there for it to move a little bit, but it's not going to move around a whole lot. Whereas this thing here, I mean, it can move all over the place if it comes loose on you or just wears out or whatever's going on. If you hit it hard enough, that'll move on you. Okay, so that's kind of the downside to the commercial version, even if it, like I said, even if it has the mil spec dimension tube. Okay, so you can take a commercial buttstock and you can put it on a mil spec tube. It's just going to be loose. It's going to make noise. It's going to rattle on you. Now, even the mil spec, even though you have the mil spec dimension in here and it's going to fit a lot snugger and tighter, these have a tendency to move around on you also and make a little bit of noise most of the time, but not like if you put a commercial on here. Now, it is much more difficult to take a mil spec buttstock and put it on a commercial tube if you can get it on at all. It'll be so tight that you're not going to be happy with it if you do manage to get it on there. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this at the beginning of the video just to kind of let people know that aren't familiar that sometimes there's a difference in specifications even though they might look very similar or the same. So QD options on a mil spec M4 style buttstock. If you're going to try to use your run-of-the-mill handguard rail-mounted type QD, because on the mil spec they put the slot right up against the housing, there's no way to get this on here without modification. You can see where the screw holes line up, just not enough space. And then the other issue you're going to have is even if you put some relief cuts in there and modified this to run your standard QD mount, there's a T-nut issue. If you're going to use T-nuts, by the time you get done doing a relief cut for this thing to work, You know, you're not going to get enough to hold on to, and your T-nut's going to have very little engagement on the other side. So trying to modify your buttstock to run a standard QD swivel mount, not a good option. You would have to fabricate some type of plate on the other side and not use a T-nut. So by the time you get done doing all that, it's like, why? When there's options on the market. So let's get into some of the QD options that I have. If you wanted to modify your buttstock, this could be another option. Now this is designed for an A2 buttstock, but I mean I could see this where it could be an option if you wanted to drill this out a little bit. You could get this in here. This is a full rotation base though, so if you put your sling swivel in there, it's going to rotate 360 degrees. But I mean, this could be an option if you wanted to modify that. So this option won't require any modification, and this also comes from Grove Tech. I tried this thing out, and I don't know, I didn't care for it too much. And I'll install it on this buttstock just to show you what it looks like. And then one of the downsides that I didn't care for, or actually two of them. Here's one of the downsides to this Grove Tech design. Once you get it installed, it makes a lot of noise. And they give you a big fat O-ring here that you can shove down on the other side to kind of keep a little bit of tension on it, but it generally doesn't stay put. It kind of, you still end up with a lot of noise back here. The other thing was, this is 360 degree rotation. It doesn't lock your swivel in. And I like my swivels to lock in. I like to lock them in at different positions. This may not be a concern for you, but it's not my preference. So I'll plug this in and I'll show you. You can see 360 degree rotation, never locks in. But I don't know, I mean, you know, this could be an option for you. It's just, I decided it wasn't for me. So this is option number 2 that I have that I will be using. And it's a GG&G. It's called a quick detach rear sling thing. So the sling thing, some positives, is it actually fits. They give you a little notch here in the cutout, so it'll fit right up against your tube housing on the buttstock. And the other thing is you get QDs on both sides after you get it installed. Another positive is these are locking QDs. So let me get my sling back in here and I'll show you that. Okay, so with the Sling QD installed, you can see that it locks. I'm pushing pretty hard on that. Still moves, still get a little bit of movement, but it locks. And it locks in multiple locations. So that's another positive. When you get your sling thing, they also come with some longer screws in case you have a thicker type stock back here. And my understanding is these will pretty much fit any type of collapsible, whether it's mil-spec, commercial, whatever. Yeah, that's what it looks like installed. And it doesn't kind of, on these mil-specs, it doesn't quite cover up the entire slot if you push it all the way back, which is where I'm going to locate it, just to give this a little bit of extra support. If I butt the end up against the buttstock end here, we'll just have a little bit of slot showing, but it will cover it if you, I think I snugged these up a little bit. Okay, there. You can locate this so you don't see any slot if that's how you want it. But like I said, I'm gonna push mine all the way against here just to give it a little bit more support. Okay, downsides. This is anodized 6061 T6. So not only is it aluminum, but it's the softer version aluminum. Now 6061 is more corrosion resistant. So that's back to a little bit of a positive, but I wish at a minimum these would have been made out of 7075 T6. And the other thing is they threaded straight into the aluminum. I kind of wish they would have maybe put some steel inserts in there. And ideally, if they would have made this entire thing out of some type of steel, that would have been perfect. So I'm not overly concerned. I don't handle my rifles rough. I'm not jumping out of airplanes or tanks or whatever. So it'll hold up just fine. My preference would be, at a minimum, if you're going to make this out of any type of aluminum, to have put steel inserts. The instructions say just don't over torque them. Don't torque them more than 45 inch-pounds. So as long as you don't over torque, you should be fine, even though everything's aluminum. Okay, well, you guys have probably been wondering what's back here. This is one of my more recent LR308 builds. I used New Frontier Armory receivers, Wilson Combat barrel. It's an A5 tube. Did a couple of playlists. I built 2 of these rifles. I did 2 separate playlists. I'll show you the other side so you can get a look at the receiver logo. So you can see how little movement you get with the BCM compared to the GG&G. In case you didn't know, the Magpul SL is full rotation. So this is going to spin on you. Okay, well, I think that covers it as far as the QD options that I have for a mil-spec M4 style buttstock. Pete, North Las Vegas, over and out.